kind of want to take a minute right now and recap the debates last night. So I did an AMA afterwards. I got a lot of audience viewpoints. The conspiracy farm came in and weighed in on a few things. And, I got a night's sleep. I want to do a little retrospective on that. Clearly, if you were playing team baseball, okay, and you just believe what's in the headlines, and you do absolutely no research of your own whatsoever, you didn't change your mind no matter what you thought. Whether you were a MAGA guy or a never Trumper. There was no mind change here. Let's not get that twisted. I want to make sure people understand that, okay? That's just a fact. There was no sway whatsoever. If you believe the Russia propaganda and intelligence officials have exonerated Joe Biden and there was no corruption at Burisma just because, then you're going to believe that. Because unfortunately, you're a brainwashed zombie and you have no desire to look into things. Okay? Now, if you think that Trump is the best thing since breakfast, you probably just were like, MAGA, MAGA, MAGA all night long because Trump was the one that hit him with the zingers. Trump is the one that referred to him as the big man, which, is only available through these emails. We now have this other gentleman who's come forward and says he has 3 cell phones that show text messages between Biden and him in corrupt business deals. Okay? This is starting to pile on. And we know an FBI and a Department of Justice have now had the laptop for, almost a year. December of last year is the earliest that we can say that they had it. Now you got to wonder, organizations like the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, and the pseudo-organizations around them. When I say pseudo-organizations, the Booz Allen Hamiltons, the Kissinger Institutes, the Stratfors, and many, many more. How much information they had without any of these laptops, right? Think about it. How much information they'd already gathered. And, when the Senate, puts out their Burisma paper and, obviously no one's coming up on criminal charges, although it shows corruption, it's basically a whitewash, right? They're just whitewashing away. So in that sense, Trump continuously bringing up the emails and even forcing the moderator, in a sense, to ask Joe Biden at least the smallest of questions regarding this whole scandal was a huge win. In my opinion. But again, if you think Russia, and Joe Biden tells you Russia, and then just blindly tells you intelligence officials have already said it was all a crock, even though you have the director of national intelligence saying this is not Russia propaganda and that they have been looking at the laptop in a money laundering scandal. Okay? And no matter what you believe, this is nepotism. You can try to erase Joe Biden sitting there and bragging about withholding $1 billion from the Ukraine unless a prosecutor investigating his son was fired. I mean, it's right there. That's the kind of cognitive dissonance so many people have. If you don't want to look at that, then there's no saving you, right? You got to understand, I covered that well before Trump made his phone call. So when Trump made that phone call and it became public that he was asking for that to be revisited, I was happy. It should be revisited. It spun me for a loop when they somehow impeached him because of that, which was completely partisan and total Johnny nonsense. But again, unless you're really deep into this, unless you're following it, and a lot of people aren't day to day, then you wouldn't know that. I thought the format was actually much better this time. No one seemed to get muted outright. And I know that a lot of people were like, well, the moderator interrupted Trump. The moderator interrupted Trump most of the time when Trump jumped in. And then she gave him a time to respond in most cases, and then a time for Biden to respond, putting him on the spot. Now, the other argument I've heard out there is that, Joe Biden clearly doesn't have the early stages of dementia. These are like the trolls in my comments. He's eviscerated your argument. What are you talking about? At least a dozen plus times in 90 minutes he misspoke. Okay? I mean, probably the most pronounced one was either, well, he called the Proud Boys the Poor Boys. They're not a sandwich, Joe. But then again, in my mind, they're not white supremacists either. And, they get thrown into that just like they try to throw militia into white supremacists or nationalists or racists or bigots or all that stuff. And I'm not saying there aren't racist people in those groups, but there's racist people in just about every group out there. And it's certainly not predominant in those groups, no matter what the media would have you believe. Now, the other time that he really misspoke big was talking about Chinese policy, where he had to restart. Now, there were plenty of other times where he could barely spit it out. And had Trump wanted to be obnoxious and put the pressure on him, I believe he could have done so. Okay? I believe he could have done so 100%. But, I love him or hate him, he didn't attack him that way. He went after the emails. He went after the corruption. He went after China, right? He went after so much more. And it's just, it's tough for me to see it any other way. Watching it, sleeping on it, and thinking about it. So now we're going to move on to this kind of bizarre news story that I haven't seen really much in mainstream media in the United States, and I kind of wonder why. Because it is so bizarre that we're going to play a local news clip about it, but it's the plot to assassinate Joe Biden by a 19-year-old who's caught with CP and $500,000 cash. What? And apparently it was picked up in May. So this is something that's, 5 months old, 5+ months old, and it's a 19-year-old kid, and they're trying to claim that across, 8 devices, he had CP on it, and that he had an AR-15 style rifle, and he was Googling the home of Joe Biden, okay? And he had explosives. The whole thing just seems so bizarre, right? Because if I'm a 19-year-old and I have $500,000, the last thing I'm thinking about is assassinating a political figure, right? And you'll see a picture of him. We're going to play the local clip. But how this hasn't blown up everywhere even makes me more suspect about it, okay? And the age of the kid, the availability of, this money that they're saying is an inheritance, the CP angle, all of it is really weird, okay? All of it is really, really bizarre. So let's read this thing. A North Carolina man has been arrested after his van was found loaded with guns, explosives, and child pornography. And a probe found he was plotting to potentially assassinate Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, officials said. Alexander Hillel Traceman, who went by the alias Alexander S. Thesis, which is weird that, he would have an alias, right? And it would be so close to his actual name. And is originally from Seattle, was arrested in late May. Employees at a bank in Kannapolis called police to investigate a white van that had been left in the parking lot, and officers discovered inside a trove of weapons and explosives, including an AR-15 style rifle, books on bomb making, and more than $500,000, leading to his arrest. Think about that. The van is at the bank. It's left there. There's $500,000 and all this other stuff in it. Because, you just leave $500,000 in cash in a van. That happens a lot. It happens a lot. Okay? A Joint Terrorism Task Force investigation found he had extensively researched Joe Biden, was obsessed with mass murders, had an interest in racist ideologies, and possessed child pornography. Treisman posted an iFunny meme on April 15, 2020 with the caption, "Should I kill Joe Biden?" Everything about this stinks to high hell, and to me is completely bizarre. Am I the only one that thinks that? Am I the only one saying that this is completely bizarre? Records show he traveled to Wendy's within 4 miles of Joe Biden's home on May the 3rd. On May 16th, he took a screenshot of a note that was consistent which is, again, all this is really weird. I'm going to want to read the court documents on this. With a surveillance and attack plan connected to a possible threat against Joe Biden or other targeted act of violence, at the end of the checklist was the word execute, according to WBTV. And we're going to play that clip in a minute. I just feel like we have to read this because, again, so odd, so bizarre. Traceman conducted internet searches between March and May 2020, seeking information about Joe Biden's home address, state gun laws, rifle parts, and night vision goggles. Traceman is currently being held in jail on CP charges. He has not been charged with any crime related to his possession of the guns of evidence pointing towards a terror plot. What is going on here? In an order from earlier this month, a federal magistrate judge said Traceman should continue to be held in jail due to his pornography charges, as well as his plans for the potential terror plot. First of all, the CP thing, yeah, let's hold him. Let's see what is going on with this kid. According to the police who investigated his white van, he was armed with an arsenal of weapons. Through the windows, KPD officers observed an AR-15 style rifle, whatever that means, a box for a Taurus 380 handgun, canister of explosives material, tannerite. Tannerite's pretty popular. And a box of 5.56 caliber ammunition. The order said, citing testimony from an FBI agent who investigated the case as part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. A search found approximately $509,000 of U.S. currency, believed to be the defendant's inheritance, books about survival, bomb making, improved weapons, and Islam, a drawing of a swastika and planes crashing into buildings, as well as 5 additional guns. And you notice the 9/11 angle is also thrown in there? I mean, think about all this. 9/11, CP, $500,000, AR-15s. What is going on? When Traceman was arrested, officers found he possessed driver's license from 3 different states. Also, extremely bizarre. Again, with the aliases, extremely bizarre. A lot of people have tried to point out that it has weird similarities to the Nova Scotia incident. And we never did a deep dive on that, but that stunk to high hell as well. They also found he had purchased his weapons in states across the country, including Washington, Kansas, New Hampshire, and West Virginia. They found CP on 8 different electronic devices, along with other photos related to plans and ideas for possible terrorist acts. Authorities also found a handwritten autobiography in the jail cell that referenced mass shootings. Just checks every box, doesn't it? Mass shootings, CP, 9/11, swastikas, Nazis. Investigators said they found a note created on October 15th, 2019 on Traceman's Samsung S9 cell phone that described a plan to commit a mass shooting at a mall food court on Christmas or on Black Friday. He also had still images from video footage of the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque shooting that he downloaded on March 21st, 2020, and internet searches related to it. I wonder what kind of drugs this guy was on. I wonder how meted up this 19-year-old kid was. You know, does this person have a history of schizophrenia? Is he on serotonin reuptake inhibitors? Come on. He had also taken screenshots on February 18th on 2020 Reddit post by username Alex the Bodacious, referencing pedophilia and executing people he hates. On February 22nd, Traceman made an internet post referencing raping children and posting CP. My God. On April 3rd, he made an audio recording narrating the perfect porn video where he described killing 2 parents with a shotgun, then raping and impregnating their young daughter. On April, and he's only being charged with CP. This whole thing is weird, right? And he was arrested back in May, and we're 5 months into it. What is really going on here? And he made his way, miles away from Biden's home? Alex the Bodacious stated he was going to do a Columbine for a while, but I think it would be better to put it towards something more memorable. Okay, the judge order said agents found a picture of a rental agreement for an apartment in Canada and emails between Traceman to a Canadian immigration lawyer about moving to the country. A lawyer for Traceman asked an agent if he was aware that the defendant had been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome according to an order. Again, I'm wondering what SSRIs this person was on. The court filing said agents had taken Traceman if he had any mental health conditions, and they were told he did not. Following the evidence, the judge ruled he had no combination of available release conditions would reasonably assure the safety of the community, and that a preponderance of evidence establishes that no conditions would ensure defendant's presence in court. So the Kannapolis Police Department Chief Terry Spry said Thursday the suspect was turned over to federal authorities pending further investigation. I am proud of our officers for their due diligence and quick actions that allowed us to prevent an incident from happening. An incident no one talked about whatsoever. So let's play this clip right here.
Arrested this man. See his picture here in Kannapolis. Alexander Traceman, who also goes by Alexander Theis. We are told he is not from the area. His address is listed actually in Washington State. But we're told his van was reportedly filled with guns and explosives. WBTV's Nick Oxner broke the story this afternoon for us. He is live now with more of the details. He's been digging into the court documents in this case. Troubling allegations. Nick, how did this investigation start?
Yeah, Jamie, that investigation actually started here in this bank parking lot in Kannapolis when bank employees noticed a seemingly abandoned van in their parking lot, and that's when they called police. According to a court document filed in federal court, those concerned employees called Kannapolis PD, and when they arrived, the document says they found the van was full of guns and explosives visible through the front windshield. Traceman was initially arrested on a state charge of carrying a concealed weapon, but has since been charged with federal child pornography crimes. He has not, however, been charged with the other evidence investigators with the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force found, including plans to kill former Vice President Joe Biden or possibly shoot up a mall during the holiday season. Now, agents also told a judge that they found more than $500,000 in cash in Traceman's van that was here in this parking lot. They say his computer also showed he was trying to alter and make a fake foreign passport and had a rental agreement for an apartment he was trying to move to in Canada. We have much more details online at WBTV.com. For now, reporting live in Kannapolis. Nick.
There you go. You see the mouse thing is not working great. Okay, so there you have it, guys. Very bizarre, very odd. Something we're going to have to keep an eye on because, what else do you say about that? What else do you say about that case? Now we find out the passport thing. We look at Canada. It's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on because I haven't seen it anywhere else whatsoever.